Hello there, friends and listeners, listener friends and friendly listeners. It is time for another episode of K-Ben Talks in Your Ears. This time around, I sat down with my friend Natasha Rodriguez. We met back in the early 2000s, I want to say 2006 maybe, doing community college theater. She was, I think, a senior in high school at that time, and I was in community college, but we had done some Shakespeare plays together, and then later on, I cast her in a production of Midsummer Night's Dream. And in between all that, between then and now, she has uh, become a screenwriter. She's gone to film school, studied screenwriting, and so that's what we talk about, which was great because that's my wheelhouse. So we just kind of had a good time talking about process and story and the types of work she's been doing. She's been kind of working in a lot of different genres and seeing what sticks and what doesn't. So this was a fun one. I had a good time. I hope you do too. Remember that you can find this and other episodes on the Patreon page, patreon.com/Karyn Bensinger. The link will be somewhere attached to whatever you're listening to. And on to the interview. Wow, I totally just like, great start. First of all, thank you for coming on board to do this. This has been a really fun series of conversations I've been having with people because, you know, I think from being home for so long, I'm like, what's everyone else up to? What are you guys doing? What's happening? But particularly for those of us who are trying to do anything in the arts, it's kind of like, what do we do? And so just to get started on that, you and I know each other through theater, which
Yes,
is an impossible task right now.
I know. It's been really
So,
sad.
but yeah, so I wanted to talk to you about what you were doing in that realm or anything outside of it, arts related, before all of this kind of hit, and then what have you been able to do this year, if anything? Um, so that's the start.
Well, it's been really crazy. I was with a boutique production company and we had just completed our proof of concept in November, which was also crazy because like the executive producer gave me a $8,000 budget and 1.5 weeks to make it happen. I actually didn't touch any of the money that they gave me. So I did it like I got everything for free. I just pulled in a lot of favors.
Mhm.
And we shot that in November. I think it went through editing kind of late in February. And then as we were ready to get that submitted, that was like March 12th. I got a call that we were closing down the office due to COVID and that they would be in touch within like 6 weeks. And then after that period, I didn't hear from anybody at that office. The office went dark
Mm.
for many months. I didn't hear from the executive producer of this feature we were working on until I think September. But her and I had some issues previously. I just didn't particularly like the way she handled business. I thought she burned a lot of bridges. She had she was like quick to anger,
Oh
which is
no.
not good, when you're trying to work in a collaborative field.
Yeah.
And so I was putting out a lot of fires, and so um, I just told her that I was going to be going somewhere else for work. I would not be returning. And other than that, in the meantime, since I hadn't heard from her, I've been writing. I graduated last year in 2019 from the New York Film Academy in screenwriting.
Awesome.
And I just been submitting all my works and editing them. I was a semifinalist in the Los Angeles International Screenplay Competition for a pilot series.
Awesome.
And I was a quarterfinalist in the script to comic series for a comic book I wrote. And that was just in October. So I've been busy. I've been writing. I started a writers group with some of my film friends from the New York Film Academy, and we meet once a week on Thursdays normally around like 6:30. we have people in Canada, people in Brazil, people in Mexico, and we all kind of try to make it work to sit down and talk about what we're working on and give feedback and notes and that kind of thing. So we're just staying busy. I'm writing a thriller right now, so this is a new genre for me. I did like historical dramas. I've done a historical comedy. Um, I did like a supernatural historical drama. That was my comic book, but this is going to be the first time I'm doing like an actual thriller. So I'm excited.
That is really cool. So, did you have any like a common thing I've been hearing from a lot of artistic minds when uh like March into like the beginning of summer for a lot of people, myself included, it seemed like I think because we were all kind of like waiting to see what was going to happen was a really kind of dry time creatively. I know me personally, it was like I in my mind I was like I'm going to write so much right now. I'm at home, and then I just couldn't really find the drive to do it. Did you have any kind of a lag like that, or were you kind of just like ready to go? Because it sounds like you've been writing a lot.
I've been writing a lot, but I did have, I went through like a depression. I couldn't write. There was probably like a 2 or 3 month span where I did absolutely nothing. Um, in fact, actually, I think I tried to like purposely not write. I started tutoring my friend's kids in English who needed help. I was like making excuses to go over there and tutor him. And then I started cleaning my sister-in-law's house and she's like, "Aren't you going to write?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to do it." And then when there were times that I actually sat down to write, I would just make up excuses. I'd be like, "Oh, this kitchen needs to be rearranged. Like I've rearranged my kitchen 4 times this year. I like deep cleaned my house many, many times. I've done decorations, like, decor and stuff. I've changed any excuse like not to write. I made it. I made the excuses. And it wasn't until my husband was like, "You need to sit down and write. Like, you're a good writer. Sit down and write. Get it out."
Do you find that does it help when someone just kind of like reminds you of that or gives you that little push? Or like I know for me, if I watch like a really great movie or something and I'm like, or maybe a not so great movie that I'm like, man, I could have written a better script for that, or that I could write better dialogue. Do you find, or what are the things like that that kind of push you back into the writer's seat versus like getting distracted by all the house cleaning and stuff?
Uh, for sure. My husband definitely he started like nudging me and pushing me to do it. And even then I was resistant. But then I started, like you said, I started watching new series and kind of just expanding my like genre, what I normally watch, and just, I guess, taking in so much content. And I thought I could do it better. Mine is better.
Yeah, I have that I don't know, sometimes I'll be watching something. It's not even about like I don't know. I don't want to listen. That's like what I'm going to write better than everybody who's already gotten a job writing, doing something. But there are times when I'm like watching a show and I'll hear the dialogue, even if it's not something where I want to fix it. But a lot of times I'll hear dialogue and I'll see it, and I'm like, oh, this is how it looked on the page. This is how the actor took that and like
Hmm.
delivered it. But there are times when I'm like, this is so clunky. Like you could have just like dropped these, like shortened the sentence or done something, or I don't know. I get like screenwriter vision that when I'm watching stuff that I'm like, all I see is the script sometimes. And uh,
I'm the same way. I analyze everything. Um, it's gotten so bad where I will like interrupt my husband. I'll predict the entire episode or movie, and he's like, "Oh, you were right." It was funny because I think last year we were watching. This is when I noticed it started happening. We were watching Witcher, and he was like, Something's off about these like the stories and all the he was like all the plot lines and stuff, and I was like, "Oh, they're happening in different timelines." And he goes, "Really?" And then he starts watching it like 10, 15 minutes and he's like, "Oh my gosh, that's what it is." And I think we
yeah,
were only in episode 2.
I have to sometimes like stop myself because I'm like, I don't know if the people I'm sitting with will want me to tell them
Yes.
the unfolding of the events that's about to happen.
Yes.
But yeah, it is funny because it's like, well, I think for you being fresh out of school for all of this too, you have all that stuff like it's got to be so like vibrant in your mind about all of everything.
Oh, for sure it is. For sure it is. I've become like a huge critic. It's sad.
What's as far as screenwriting, what is your favorite part? Like, what's your favorite element? Like for me, it's dialogue. I love dialogue. It's like I, I could write pages and pages and pages of it and not touch action lines. Um, but uh, but then I struggle most with like story. Not even that's where I have to work the most. But like for you, what's your best and worst? What do you?
It's funny, maybe I actually got it from you because we spent a lot of time together when I was young. Dialogue is the biggest for me. I can I have whole conversations laid out, and in fact, in like final draft, I have just so many little drafts in the program of just conversations, and
Mm,
sometimes I'll build a whole story on conversations. Actually, one I was really impressed with was I think it was Marriage Story with Adam Driver, and he had this dialogue with Scarlett Johansson. He was talking about how he could have fucked everybody, and he did, and she should be so grateful. And I was like, this is the whole movie. Like, I
mhm.
feel like the writer had this conversation in his head, and that's where it all came from. And he built this whole movie around that because I was like, this is it. This is what the story is really all about.
Mhm.
um, and that's kind of what I do. I sort of build a story around a conversation.
Yeah. Do you tend to sometimes, well, back when we could be around other people,
Mhm.
do you pick up stuff people are saying and kind of like make notes about it?
I'm shameless about it. I do. I put like it in my phone, or I'll record them. I would record my grandmother because my pilot series was a historical pilot series set in the 50s,
Mhm.
and it was semi-inspired by her life and her growing up with like a minor celebrity. Her Thea raised her, and her name was Alma Beltran. She was in San Fernando. She was Miss Fuentes. And she had like a fairly successful career. She was pretty well known in the Latin community at the time. And when I hear her tell the stories and her conversations about it, I would just sit there and record her because the way she said stuff was like, it's just so authentic, I think, to the time and the place. And she's like the epitome of that Latin culture of that time. Um, but yeah, I do it, and I do it shamelessly to my friends all the time, all the time. And they can, if they've read my material, they'll be like, that's something you took from me, huh? I could tell. That's me right there. I'm like, oh yeah, it is you. It's you.
That's the danger of being friends with a writer is we're always
Yeah.
listening. We're always eavesdropping or listening or remembering for later.
Yes, or just very observant that way.
It's true. It is very true. Yeah, I'm realizing right now. I'm like I miss this. Like just even going like to Denny's or IHOP and like sitting and like hearing whoever around talking about something. And I used to do that on the subway a lot in New York. Is
Hmm.
just everything around you. There's always something insane happening at some point in time on your way to and from work or whatever. And there was a lot of I miss that energy. I've been honestly missing New York a lot. Like I think
Oh
just being at
yeah.
home and then like I'm watching a lot of like Law and Order SVU and they're just like streets and I'm like oh that's where I wish I was there.
Oh
Perhaps not for
yeah.
the crimes, but for the the
Yeah.
ambiance. But yeah, there's something to that, and there's something I think about um when you are tuned into dialogue and then your ear really starts to scope out like hearing because that's how I learned I think how to write how people talk and
Hmm.
and people do that in different ways but really it's that listening skill of like and not and the shamelessness of just what I'm taking that and I'm putting that in something it's I will say
Yep. Yeah,
um
no.
when you decided on film school screenwriting specifically, what was your did you have a specific goal in mind for what you wanted to do with that? Do you have certain stories that you um, want to tell? are you just crazy about writing movies? I mean, that's kind of where I'm like, I gotta just do it all the time. But
Yeah, for me, I just really wanted to, I specifically really wanted to share some of the stories that my family had told me. I think that, you know, I have a very diverse background. My dad came from the Netherlands, and then, he met my mom. She's Latin, and they've been in LA, I think, since it was under Mexico's territory. So they've been here forever. And I loved their stories. I was like the kid, my siblings were like 10 and 12 years older than me. And my cousin, I think my closest cousin in age was 5 years older than me. So I was like the only kid my age. And so I actually spent a lot of time with my grandparents, with my oma and opa on my dad's side, and my nana and tata on my mother's side, on the Latin side. And they just loved to share their stories in the past, and how they grew up and how they were raised. What happened. My grandfather, my opa, used to share about his time in the camps. Um, and he had such an interesting background. So I just wanted to share their stories originally. And that's what kind of led me along the path of writing. And then I was at ABC, and I think the professor's name was David Lewis, who I took like screenwriting 101. And he told me, he's like, if you're not doing this, if you're not writing, he's like, you should be doing this. You should be a writer. He was like, because he gave us like a short to do. He's like, oh, it's 10 pages. And I gave him 120 page script. And I just looked up. He was very like laissez-faire about the whole class. I think he knew that most people weren't going to take it seriously. They weren't going to pursue film. They were just trying to get that elective.
mm-hmm.
And when I came there, and he was like, your structure's pretty good, and I turned in a feature film, he was like, okay, this is what you should be doing.
That's interesting too, because when I took those same classes, we had to write features, and it's interesting that they changed that to be shorts because I don't know. I mean, after I took that class probably 3 times because that's how I would get scripts done, is I would make myself take the class so that I could produce something. But um, I'm wondering if they were kind of like, because I don't know. In, Everybody has ideas and everybody has the ways they want to execute them, but it's interesting to hear that they kind of shifted that more toward a short film program, I guess.
I have a feeling that people just, people out here just weren't performing. They weren't turning in feature films, and they were like, okay, everybody's failing this class. We gotta restructure it. But yeah, he was the one who kind of just, I think, opened my eyes to the idea of going to film school. I've done theater with you for a long time, and I loved theater. And I've been on set, and I still think that there's something about theater that really like forces everybody to build a relationship and be together and collaborate.
Mm-hmm.
And you really become a family. And sometimes I've felt that in film, and then other times I haven't, where I've been on sets where everybody just kind of does their own thing afterwards and says their goodbyes. But not with theater. With theater, I've always felt like it was a family, and we've done things together afterwards. And I think that's what I like about theater versus film.
Yeah. And I think with theater too, you have to be in the same space working, even if people are doing tech or something, you're still in that same space. It's pretty close versus a film set, whether it's 20 people or 200 people, everybody has these fragmented jobs. So it is easier, I think, to feel separate but also on a great film set, everyone can feel as like a unit too. So it probably just depends on who's running that set and what's happening. And
Agreed.
because that's because the thing about film is that it's collaborative in this other way, which is like it's sometimes a disconnected collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to learn a different language to communicate all those different parts to someone. And like as a director and a producer, it's like you really have to learn how to bridge those things. But if you're like I don't know, I mean, I don't want to discredit gaffers or something. You could be a gaffer who's great at communicating with everyone. But I mean, if you have like an isolated job, then maybe you don't know how to talk to an editor about getting something done because you've never had to do that. And so I've been being on that end of things And most of the time, if I'm doing my own work, I'm probably the entire crew also on top of it. So I'm doing a lot of the stuff. But I think that's also helped because then I know what I need. So if I do have someone else doing something, if I'm working with an outside editor, I at least I've edited enough to know what to ask for.
Mm-hmm.
Versus, I think sometimes people don't know how to communicate what they're thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the communication within the film collaboration is so different from theater because in theater you're all working together to create that moment, and that
Right.
moment comes and it goes, and then there's a bonding experience to that,
Mm-hmm.
which is similar to I think being on set and really nailing a scene. If you nail the day and it's like it was like everyone just like
Oh yeah.
worked it out, you
Mm-hmm.
can have that same kind of like thrill. But I don't know, live theater with a live audience and we're all invested in the same moments is different.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's for sure different, but um I agree with you a lot on some of the film aspects. It was a different sort of collaborative experience. I was so lucky to be at New York Film Academy because they really force you to learn sort of all sides of the film industry and different jobs. I worked as a director, a producer, um, assistant director. I've I did editing. I did editing for like 3 projects, including my own. But they make you use Avid, and Avid is just not as user friendly as Final Cut. It's so hard. Um, but I got it done. I figured it out. It was definitely a learning curve for me. Um, but it was very helpful to know all those side of things. So when I went to work at the production company that I was at before COVID, it really helped me sort of communicate with all the cast and the crew. And so I felt really good about that project. It was very collaborative. I would say probably the only issue we had was our actor who showed up drunk on set and didn't know his lines, which was like the worst.
Oh
Or
no.
no, I actually called Nigel and I was like, Nigel, I might need you like today to come out. I was like, I just have this actor and he doesn't know what he's doing.
Oh
He came
no. Yeah,
drunk.
that's not good. That's not a good way to show up to work at any job.
No,
Any
no,
job.
any job. No, it was so unprofessional.
Unless your job is like a professional beer drinker at a, well, even then, don't show up drunk because you still have to do the drinking. So just don't do it.
Right.
Oh, well,
Oh,
but that's part of, producing is kind of, being ready to handle whatever is happening or not happening and figuring it out. That's
yeah.
the problem solving part of it.
For sure.
So you listed off you rattled off a huge list of stuff you have been writing, which covers a ton of genres. Um, so
Right.
you said historical comedy, historical drama, some supernatural something, uh, and you're working on a thriller.
Yes.
Do you, of those of those things, like, do you have a preference so far? Is it kind of just each project is its own thing?
I think each project is kind of its own thing, but I do notice like I, there's always something historical about all of my works, and they're very like dialogue heavy, um, so there's a lot of conversations happening, um, but yeah, I mean, I just kind of wanted to, I think, figure out which one I'm the best at. So
Mhm.
far, I think my niche is like historical drama. Um, at least that's what I've received like the most praise at. But we'll see how it goes with this thriller. It is a loose adaptation of the Yellow Wallpaper, so I'm
Mhm.
really excited. It's something that I've been wanting to do, I think, since the beginning of film school. It was a story that really resonated with me when I was in high school. I don't know, I just loved that story, and I wanted to sort of tell it from a different perspective.
Mm.
So we'll see how it goes.
Do you, uh, with something like that, if you're doing like a loose adaptation, is it basically just like that's a story you're familiar with, so you want to do your own take on it. You're not, I mean, what's that process like for you? Is it just inspired by it?
It's more like inspired by. I definitely, there's moments in my script and the outline where I really want to play, homage to the story and the characters and Charlotte Perkins Gilman herself. But it's kind of become its own thing. I think I started off trying to really stay closer to the adaptation in some of my earlier drafts, and then it's sort of become its own thing. I read this book called I think it's called Ghostland in American History,
Mhm.
and by this guy Colin Dickey. I mean, sometimes I think he likes to toot his own horn, but I thought he had a really good take on ghosts, like just and where they come from and how we sort of manifest them. So I wanted to do something along those lines and sort of bring that to life. And I felt like in the yellow wallpaper, I don't know if you've read the story.
Oh, probably in high school, but it's been
You probably did. You probably did. This woman, she's kind of like too independent. She's very independent. She's a writer, and I think she's a writer. It was actually inspired by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. It was like her story about what was happening with her. At the time, they thought she had hysteria, but she was going through like postpartum depression.
Mhm.
And her husband's solution was to take her to the country and keep her secluded from everyone and take away everything that she loves and leave her locked in this room with yellow wallpaper that slowly drives her mad. And she sort of becomes haunted by the wallpaper, like these images of this woman she sees in the wallpaper. And so I remember like the guys in class were just like, oh, this chick's just crazy. She's just being ridiculous. I was like, no, you guys, no, she has like postpartum depression. She's like, it's gotten so bad. I was like, it's like a neurosis. I don't know. It's just, she's really going crazy. And I just wanted to talk about that. I don't think like we talk about that sort of issue a lot with women. And there was these parts of the book and the short story that made me think like, I don't even know if she ever really wanted to have children. I felt like because she didn't talk about her child that often. And I think it was something that was sort of forced upon her, especially in that time. Like it was her duty to do that. And so I just really wanted to talk about those sort of women's issues that we still, are dealing with today.
Mm-hmm. That's really cool, and I think that in hand with like mental health as an overall concept too, because these are conversations that constantly need to be had right now, because I think we need to really sit with them and visit and revisit them so that we can openly talk about this stuff, because you're talking about a point in time where they thought, even though it's let's make this woman not be depressed by putting her in a room with nothing that she brings her joy, with some hideous wallpaper that drives her insane, and then you wonder why she lost her mind. Like, come on.
Exactly. Come on.
Yeah. So that's really fascinating. That's really cool. When you are now that you've had a few projects to work through, have you established a drafting process that really works for you, or are you still kind of working that out? Does it vary based on kind of what you're working with? I know for me, I used to despise outlining because I was like, it's a waste of my time. And then as I get older, I'm like, I should probably outline so I don't forget the things that I'm trying to put in my book.
Right.
Currently, I kind of do a hybrid of on a first draft, I'll do some notes sometimes, but I'll start a script, and then at the bottom, I'll start just writing out what I know I want to happen. So I guess I'm kind of outlining, but I'm calling it something else, so I don't have to address the fact that I'm doing it. But do you have a specific process that you shaped, or are you still working on it?
I have a process now, and film school really kind of like instills, treatments and beat sheets and really the process. And I have a love-hate relationship for it, but I feel like it's a necessary evil that I just have to get through, because it really does help me along with the process. Like you said, it helps you remember things, so you don't forget important parts that you wanted to include. What I do now is I usually will, if there's certain conversations I have in my mind, I want to just get that stuff out on paper, or certain scenes that I know I for sure want, I'll put it on paper. But I primarily start with outline. So I do like sort of a loose 1-page treatment first, and then I usually go to a couple pages, and that's where I want to just get out all the stuff I really know I want to be in my script. And then I go back and I do sort of a really detailed outline and beat sheet.
So you're doing like, what's that, like 3, 4 steps?
It's
I
a
mean,
lot of steps.
but the truth is that like good writing comes from, which, like, no matter how you kind of shape it, I think it is that thing. And I think that a lot of screenwriters tend to get hung up on, like, new writers will get so hung up on some kind of a formula that makes it
Hmm.
work. Like Robert McKee has his like 40, 45 character beats or character
Yes.
facts. And my dad actually paid for me to go to a McKee seminar a few years ago, because I never would have paid the money to go, because I would have been like,
Yeah.
I've seen adaptation. What? But some friend of his had gone, and so he's like, "Do you want to go?" I was like, "Fine, I'll go." And it was actually very, very like informative. And like I didn't go to film school. I went to community college, and then I started writing movies. I kind of just jumped straight to it. But so I was really glad to do it, because even though it's a pretty fundamental, like,
Hmm.
core concept. But I mean, and the man is like 100 years, I don't know how old he is, he's a very old man.
Hmm.
But he's been doing it for long enough that I was like, there's some real wisdom to it, but it also is so formulaic. And I'm like, but I have a love-hate relationship with that kind of stuff, like the Save the Cat beat sheets. I have them because they work, but also I'm
Hmm.
like, a movie isn't a formula. A movie is a story, but a movie is
Hmm.
kind of a formula. So you kind of have to do it. And and I do try to work through those if I'm trying to break a story. But I don't know. Yeah, it's like some people really, really want to get down and do like ABC, like work through it, and then they
Yeah.
can still tell a really genuine, an authentic piece from it. But I see other people really, really struggling so hard with that. And I'm like, well, here's the 4 things you need to know: slugline, action, dialogue.
Right.
And like, if you can nail that part, you can write the script, and then you can go back and make it a good script after you've written the first one. But
Yeah. I'm like dialogue, dialogue, dialogue. There were so many young kids coming to film school. I'm a little bit older now. This was kind of like my second sort of career for me, after I left the bank. But they were so like concerned about the beat sheet and outlining, and I think that their work actually really suffered because of it. And then they weren't I don't know, it's like they didn't care about their characters, and the dialogue would be really flat. And I don't know if it's because they just don't have a lot of life experience yet. They don't know that they should be listening in on conversations. I was like, the best thing you could do is be that weirdo who listens in on everybody's conversation. I was like, I know it's horrible. I was like, but it really helps.
well, that, and I think that I don't know what the ratio is. Like for me, like you can see, I have this room of
I
movies
know. I
behind
see
me,
your library over
and
here.
I mean, this is what I did for. I still do it all the time, but like this is how I grew up, right? So I watched.
Hmm.
I actually haven't seen all of these movies. I'm still working through them, but this is how I learned, is by
Hmm.
watching all of these films, all these TV shows, and over time, compiling all of that. And I don't know if in an era of more content but less quality, if that's something that's suffering. Although every
Hmm.
time I start to have one of these like old person like break meltdowns about like what are the young people doing, um I am, my faith is restored usually, because I belong to so many different like film groups and stuff, like on Facebook
Hmm.
and Reddit and everything. So I'll see like the younger generation. There are kids who are really excited about older films, although older films means to them a movie from 1987. That's okay. Versus 19, Casablanca or something like from the 40s. But there is an interest in story, and there is an interest in film, and it's there. But I do wonder if, because the landscape is so diluted, that like I could spend 2 hours watching 40 videos on YouTube, or I could spend 2 hours watching one movie. Which
Hmm.
of those is going to give me a better grasp and idea of what a long form narrative looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know. I know that there was, I forget which film school it was. It might have been UCLA, but I could be making that up. Um, that they asked all the kids who were in the directing program, they asked them like, well, what kind of films do you want to make? And they're like, well, I don't want to make films. I want to make content for the internet.
Yeah.
And we went through a cycle of that. And I think we're maybe leaning back into like the more artistic long form version of that. So I don't know where we are with that, but that's interesting to hear, from you too, going in as someone a little bit older and looking, because when I was taking screenwriting classes, I was 19, 20, 21.
Mm-hmm.
But I was at least trying to emulate the movies that I liked. So if my favorite movie was Scream, I was writing something that was still in that same kind of ballpark and
Mm-hmm.
trying to at least mimic that formula. We're back to formulas again.
Mm-hmm.
And that self-referential humor and the dialogue and stuff. So I think at least even if you don't have the life experience, you can try to fake it, the fake it till you make it model, I guess. I don't know.
There was this guy in my film school. We call him JP, and he loved movies. I don't know if he's necessarily a writer or if he was just like a big fanboy, but he watched so much content, and sometimes I felt like all that content he was like missing the point, right? The point of the story and the narrative. Um, and I saw a lot of kids like that, but I think he had enough talent, obviously, to get him into film into film school. I think he figured out more or less the formula, like you were saying, right?
Mhm.
Well, what needs to happen and when. Um, to sort of tell a story. But as we progressed into film school, he started getting like the same notes over and over again, that he needed to work on character development. He needed to work on his dialogue, because it just didn't seem natural, right? Things were happening naturally and it seemed forced. Um, so I saw a lot of that in school. There was this one guy who, and I don't know if it's just because I watch a lot of anime and cartoons too, that I just knew when he was ripping something off. I was like, wait, and then, I watched a lot of old TV, so I was like, this was a Monsters episode. I was like, and now you just changed it, but it's a Monsters episode. I pull up the episode, and I was mean. I just put him on blast. I would show the whole class.
Wow. I mean, that's a pretty solid like pull though. I'm gonna grab this. I don't think anyone will notice. And you're like, no, 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 no,
Yeah,
I know
I
this.
I see you. Oh, it was really funny. I'd be like,
Oh,
I know
that's
what you're
amazing.
doing.
Well, I
Um,
guess that weirdly gives me faith that people are still tapping into something for whatever reason.
well, I had this friend too. His name was Josser, and he started off as like a YouTube, like sort of celebrity. He made all these little short videos that were really like esoteric in nature, and he would post them on YouTube, and it got him like kind of discovered. He's from Saudi, and he got like recruited and he got a job in production. And rather than like sort of continue on that trajectory, which was making him money, he went into long form narrative, and now he's working on like a feature film. He actually won the Atlanta Film Festival with his short film called Arabian Alien.
Wow.
So he's really progressed a long way. And so I hope that gives you hope.
Yeah, I am glad. I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, yeah. But and I guess my next now that I'm over that, I can get concerned about something else. Like my next concern is like here, so you're writing scripts and you're doing this, but like what do we do with the stuff that we're writing right now? Like if I'm writing a feature, if I'm writing a feature I'm not intending to shoot, it's like what are we supposed to do in this time where like production is back in motion, but
Mhm.
we're still in this discovery period of like how we're dealing with this virus and like
Yeah.
safety. And I feel like it already was this game of numbers with submissions and
Mhm.
competitions and festivals and stuff. It's like what, like do you have any kind of a like what's your strategy? What's your plan? Are you just entering what do I want to call them? Screenplay contests and competitions right now, or is that
Yeah, I've been primarily just focusing on getting my work into competitions and other contests. And then I guess trying to just share my stories with whoever wants to listen to me ramble on for long periods of time. Don't ask me about my script because I'll tell you. I'm happy to tell you. But yeah, that's pretty much what I've been doing. But I don't know. I like my friend Josser. He's just been making, again, he's just like kind of doing his own little shooting his own content. He's sort of afraid to be working with like large groups of people and stuff. I think he was signed with the Gersh agency, and I think they wanted him to do a big studio film, but I don't know if and when that's going to happen. But right now he's just doing his own content from home, small little videos. I think he's posting them on Instagram and YouTube. And then my friend Marissa, she's in Canada, and she's just, I guess she's working on like a adaptation right now with a studio out there, a small studio out there. But again, she's like telling me that they're probably not going to go to production until 2022. So they're kind of just taking their time, and they're going at it very slowly. So she's kind of doing the same thing I'm doing. Meanwhile, she's writing and she's just submitting her work.
Yeah, it seems like it's that, or it's like self-production. But
Yeah.
for me, it's like, well, even if because something I'm working on now, I have it scaled down to where I'm like, okay, it's 2 actors for the most part with a couple of supporting,
Yeah.
like, day players. And it's a road movie, so it's mostly in a car. And I was like, I have the equipment to do that. That part's easy. But even then, if it's going to take 5 people, I have to make sure it's 5 people we're in tight quarters in that case, and it's got to be like
Yeah.
safe. And I don't know, it's kind of like, so even unless I'm literally going to go do something by myself or with one other person, which that's what I've kind of been doing right now, is going out with Anthony and shooting like little
Yeah.
bits, which those are just like we'll be like, do you have an hour? Okay, let's do. And then what are we making? I don't know. What if I stand over here and then this happens? Sounds great, let's do it. And then I'll go to edit and I'll turn it into something. But other than those like micro shorts, I'm still trying to figure out, do I want to be in something of my own that I have to figure out how do I, just the sheer like practice of getting stuff in focus with myself. And it is like, if I want to use my good lenses,
Yeah.
that's almost impossible. I was trying that in this room. I was like, let me try some stuff. And I was like, I can't even, I'm like, so then I'm like setting up the camera and then like putting something, I had this, I was using this guy. I would place this so I could in the focal point, and then even then I was like, I don't know. But I'm in that space of like, what do I do when I can't get a crew together to do something, and everyone's unemployed. So like, how do you crowdfund right now? Because where does the money come from? And any of the old standby tools are like, I don't know. So that's kind of where I am.
I know. I feel you. Like we used to with the production company I was at, we would crowdfund through Seed and Spark, and I was like, even if I went out and did something on my own, who's really going to donate?
Mm-hmm.
When everybody's out of work. I was out of work for months on end, and now I took like a so-so job at like a call center doing inbound sales. Um, not, and by the way, they want you to have a bachelor's degree to do inbound sales now. And the pay is horrible. The pay is like $1 over minimum wage. I'm like, this is really, you guys are really taking advantage of people. But hey, when you need a job, no complaints, no complaints. I'm happy to do it. And I think it gives me, my hours are I'm normally off by 3:30. So it gives me sort of all that time to write and really do my own things, which was nice. Yeah. It was funny because I told the guy, the hiring manager, I was like, I'm really a writer. I want to focus. I still want to focus on my writing. I was like, and if something comes along in production, I want to let you know. I may not be with you. And he was like, okay, well, this job gives you a lot of time to, pursue whatever you want to do. So I was like, okay, well, what's up. So we're on a, you know. And so that's sort of where I'm at. But there were actually at that company, there's a lot of people. There was like this guy who used to do music production. We have a teacher there, who is out of work now. I think like a facilitator from a charter school, which is like their way of saying a teacher who doesn't have a credentials. Yeah, charter schools. Anybody could be a teacher now. You're a facilitator.
Oh, well, I'm gonna go become a facilitator
You should be a
and
facilitator. You
teach.
would be a great like English or drama facilitator, creative writing facilitator.
That's right. I'm available. Listen, anyone listening, you need to hire a facilitator. It's me.
Yeah.
I will facilitate. Will facilitate all day.
I will give you a reference, so feel free to use it. So there's just it's kind of like a really diverse group. I think we had someone who's like worked at Disneyland. I think she was like a character at Disneyland.
Jeez.
So you just taking what you can get, you know. I applied to so many jobs on Indeed in production, and there's like 500 plus applicants for these jobs. So you're, how do you expect to get noticed, you know, when there's so many people trying to get the same job?
Right, and
It's
it's
really,
already a highly competitive field anyway, and now
yes.
that field has shrunk down.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess the positive out of all of this is I expect that there's going to be another like independent film, like a true independent film surge, like
Mm-hmm.
really, really low budget, out of pocket stuff that's quality that people are. That's my hope, is like something equivalent to kind of like the early '90s, where
Yeah.
when we had suddenly there was like suddenly filmmaking became accessible as a concept to people, and I think we're in a similar space right now of we have all this technology and the stuff is affordable now. Like the gear that I have to shoot with now probably would have cost like, I don't know, 50 grand,
Mm-hmm.
20 years ago to assemble everything that you need. Cause I mean, and I don't have a lot, but I have like, a nice base camera. I mean, like it's a Canon, it's still just a standard DSLR, but I have a nice lens package that I put together for myself. It's nothing fancy.
Mm-hmm.
Plus I've been playing with like vintage lenses that I put the adapters on just to get some fun stuff out of it. But that plus just like all the little like audio bits and pieces and the tripods and the sliders and stuff. I'm like, this is affordable. I would
Mm-hmm.
that I was able to piece together on my own. And so that access for me suddenly makes it easier. As long as I can figure out how to get people involved, I can
Yeah.
probably do some stuff. But it is interesting having seen, it used to be what Robert Rodriguez uh, was saying, you need $7,000 to make a feature film. And that was back when he was running 35. He was shooting it himself on 35 on a camera
Mm-hmm.
that he either owned or borrowed, I think. Um, I'm like, well, now for $7,000, you could make an even better film, because really all you're paying for is the labor, like
Mm-hmm.
with the stuff that's accessible. So I don't know, because it's the same thing. People shooting on iPhones and doing stuff. If you can work it and make it look good and just figure out those steps. But it's that thing that we're still. It's the connectivity of the people
Mm-hmm.
that's the missing thing. And I don't know. I don't know if you've seen any of. I say any of, like I've seen one. Like someone did a Zoom horror film that worked.
Oh,
Um,
I have not seen it.
it's called Host. It's on the Shutter service, I
I'll
think,
have
right
to
now.
look,
But
to check it out.
it's pretty short. It's like an hour long, but
Mm-hmm.
they effectively use the idea of a Zoom call
Mm-hmm.
to create a lot of suspense. And so I'm like, this, and it actually, uh, it was like shot during quarantine and like
Mm-hmm.
using all of the actual tools of it. So um, it was pretty impressive. I was like, okay, if this is possible, we can do more with this. But then it's like it's like learning a whole new skill set, because it's like the technology and the style. And then you have to figure out how to explain, like, now I have to explain to you, like, we're going to light like this, move this here, put this here,
Mm-hmm.
frame it like this. And it's not impossible, but that's a whole separate leg of that, all that communication. Again, we're back to the communication thing of the
Yeah.
collaboration. So I feel like we all kind of have to build some new things out of our toolboxes. I don't know if that made sense, but we're going to do it. We're going to do it with tools, and we're going to build it. We're going to make it happen.
All right. Well,
So
you know, you taught me that if you play with Legos, and you can pretty much do anything.
I've imparted so much wisdom to people, and I'm like, it's nice to hear it kind of come back that it was actually useful. I mean, it's true though. I think if you can figure out how to tell a story with whatever you've got, I think you can do it. We'll see.
Yeah, well, it's just a crazy times, but I I feel you. Like I said, that proof of concept we shot, we didn't spend any of the $8,000, and I just called in like favors. We had to shoot at a church. We shot at my church. I talked to the AV Film Commission. I talked to I just, so all the permit, I didn't pay anything for like permits or anything like that. And
That's like solid. That's some solid producing. Just like
that was,
let's just
I was like,
figure
I
this out.
saved you guys a whole lot of money. Yeah. I pulled some strings from Film LA. Like I just got it done. I didn't know I had that many connections until like push came to shove, and I was like, oh, you know what? I think I know somebody. I think I know somebody.
That's a good
Let
place.
me see what I could do.
That's a good place to be, is kind of hitting that point where you've been doing something for a while and then you kind of stop and go, no, wait, I do have a guy for that, and I can call her for this, and we can do this.
Yeah. I was like, we can make this happen.
So other than your current thriller script, is there anything else that you kind of have your sights set on for the immediate future? Is it just writing for now and seeing where that goes?
Well, yeah, I guess that's pretty much writing, but I'm also, my friend Marissa, the one who's in Canada, she's trying to bring me along on this project that she's doing, that adaptation. And because we work together at the production company that went like under due to COVID. And so the problem is she's in Canada and their borders are closed. And so I think that we'll probably do like a Zoom meeting or something to talk about works and materials. So we might do some sort of collaboration on it. I don't know yet. She might have me come in on like the production end. I know they're also a small production house, so I'm sure their budget's really tight, and she was really like talking me up about what I did with this POC. So we'll see. But that's the only other thing I have going. And then the scripts, and then we meet with the writers group. So I give notes. I give a lot of notes. But I noticed some of the men are a little slower to get work submitted. Like they're a little bit slower on, pages or out like beats. And so there was like, I think 1 week where 2 people didn't show up. The guys didn't show up. So like nobody was like, I think one guy went and spoke. And then last week, like nobody had anything. And we were like, okay, well, and what happened was we rescheduled the first time, like after like 2 weeks ago when the only one guy went. We were like, okay, well, we'll give the other guys a chance to go next week. And then last week came and they didn't have anything again. So I was like, okay, well, we're moving on from you guys. Like Marissa and I will go and we'll work on our stuff. So I was like, the following week though, you guys better have something. I'm gonna kick you out of the writers group.
Some people just don't have that. I mean, I don't know, and I don't know but I mean, there is something about that gender disparity, I think, in the way that women and female-bodied people have to we just kind of have to like keep moving at a certain pace, because we have to, because if we slow down, then we're not taken seriously. But if we move too fast, then we're being too intense about it. So like, it's like this pacing that you have to kind of find the groove for it, and then you have to stay there, because otherwise one of these guys is going to decide to show up one day and then bump you out of the,
right,
exactly. then it's like, oh, congratulations, you showed up to be here today. Like, well, no, but we were already here doing this. And
oh, exactly. Oh,
man. But yeah, but that's cool though. That's cool to have a group that is at least collectively you guys are meeting and talking and constantly trying to put something out, because I think that must be so helpful right now when the days are kind of like, I don't know, what day is it even right now? Monday. I think I got that right.
Yes.
But it is hard. So it even just, I know, to have like a marker on the week, like a meeting like that is helpful, so that you can track how many days have gone. That might, so like, to know how many days have gone by that I haven't written is good, so that I'll write like, it's been 5 days, I better put some words down. So
yeah, it's really helpful. And I think it definitely encourages me to have like something to turn in and go over with them. But like you said, you don't want to have too much, because you don't want to seem like too ambitious about it. Guys always have something to say about an ambitious woman. So You
Yeah, but
just
you know
gotta have
what?
that fine
You
line.
wrote that feature film for your short film assignment. So, you write as many pages as you want to write. They ask for 10, you give 110. That should be the standard.
That was me.
Which thinking of you, even just when we were doing like college theater, I see that energy of like being like, what do you want? You want 10 pages? I'm gonna give you 110 pages in here.
Yeah, I'm a little bit neurotic that way, so I've always been like that.
But that's good. That's I don't know. That's part of being a writer, I think, is just working through that and turning it into something that you can
Yeah.
make other people read.
What's funny is I found when I was in film school and talking to other writers, especially like writers I think who took it more seriously, was that we all had like sort of similar upbringings or backgrounds, or like we all drank heavily and we all went to therapy. It was really interesting, and so I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm in the right place.
You find your people, and then
I found my people.
That's awesome. Okay, so if people are, well, do you have anything to promote, or do you have any social media you want to throw out there if people want to find you?
I guess if people want to find me, you can find me on LinkedIn under Natasha. I think it's Natasha Rodriguez. This is so bad. Let me look on my LinkedIn. Or you can find me on Instagram too. That's Nsiedenb. So it's NSIEDENB, and then you can find me on Instagram. But yeah, LinkedIn seems to be working out for me. I got, especially after I started entering competitions, I started getting a lot of more followers on LinkedIn. I'm like, I just wish one of you would offer me a job. And then we'll be set. I was like, okay. But it's funny. I also feel like I had this one actor hit me up, and I don't know, he kept like talking to me, and I was like, I feel like you're just trying to pursue me. When did LinkedIn become like
the hot dating
the
site?
hot place? Yeah, dating site. And then I was like, I'm married. And he was still trying to talk to me for like days.
I'm married, and also you're on LinkedIn.
We're on LinkedIn, dude. So that was interesting. I mean, he was a cool guy. I think I got us back on top, like track to be talking about work and what we did, but it was really funny.
That's amazing. I think that there's a story in there to write.
Oh yeah, for sure.
The LinkedIn dating service.
The LinkedIn dating service.
Well, Natasha, thank you so much for your time today and for talking about screenwriting, which is one of my favorite things. So
you're welcome.
This was an excellent, this is making me want to have to get off this and write my pages, because I feel like I need to write 110 of them for the 10 I was gonna write.
Well, I'm glad I could be of inspiration to you.
Everybody needs to if you're a writer and you are a little bit like needing some inspiration, just start a podcast and then bring people on, and they'll tell you what they're producing, and then you go, I need to get to work.
Right.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.